Right. So when people say there's a problem, I really say it's a problem only if you don't have the right world set of what really is going on, who's pulling the strings, and there always is a solution for every problem. The problem is, do you have enough time to get the solution in place so you don't have a lot of havoc and destruction before it finally wears out?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
So the latest issue I see is that this jet, and we talked about this today, we have pretty good evidence now. This Russian jet went down was actually an Israeli air-to-air missile that hit the Russian jet. It wasn't a bomb.
No missile track.
No missile track. No, we actually have some pretty good evidence now from our sources.
An air-to-air missile.
Yeah, an air-to-air missile from an Israeli jet in that airspace.
It blew the tail off the plane, whatever it was.
Blew the tail off. And the reason is we have some really good evidence that the Israelis were the ones that did it. Now, the problem is Russia can't come out and say, hey, Israeli blew off the back of this plane, because now if you're a ISIS killer, and these are all mercenaries, you get taken to an Israeli hospital to taken care of.
Yeah.
They have, the Iraqis, have actually captured a senior Israeli military officer.
Oh, he's already in Iran.
Yeah, and he's already been sequestered off, and probably in Iran, exactly. And what's going on right now is the Russians can't declare, hey, Israel shot down our plane. But what Russia will do is tit for tat. They've got an S-300 system embedded already there. And the Turks want to put in 65 kilometers inside the Syrian border, a buffer zone, and I think 11 or 12 other zones they want to put in. And they say it's going to reduce, the casualties and allow the people to return. Hogwash. They're attacking the Peshmerga forces, which are trained by us and the Israelis, which are basically the Kurds, because the Turks are fighting the Kurds in eastern Turkey for the last 50 years because they want to break off and make a new Kurdish empire, Kurdistan, which...
Well, they'll probably end up with it. They
will, because most of the new oil discovered in northern Iraq is Kurdistan, and they have lots of money to buy military equipment. And, of course, most people don't realize Esfahan is the ancient capital of Kurdistan in Iran. So the Medo-Persian Empire, which is the first empire, is going to rise again. I mean, it's obvious. It's all based on oil. And the fact that the Russians are there, once the Russians put the S-400 system, which will happen after this plane incident, and they pulled 1,100 Russians out out of the area around Sharm el-Sheikh airport in Egypt, which are all probably oil service engineers and workers. Almost certainly what the Russians are going to do is put the S-400, and they'll do absolute denial of anybody going in that airspace. If you're a bird and you don't have clearance, you're going to get shot down. Any drones, any airplanes. So the Russians will put a stop to it quick time. And that means basically most of the oil resources along these areas where we discovered the oil in Iraq, which, originally was said we should take the oil for paying for the war, which is also, illegitimate. There was no weapons of mass destruction like Colin Bowell. I call him Colin.
It was not a war, even to call it a war.
No, it's not a war. It's basically an invasion to take resources.
That's right.
It's like the joke I say, how did our oil get under their land? And
that's cute.
The fact is, 95% of the oil was given over directly through a Rothschild intermediate company that sells the oil at a break price.
Well, the Iranians have more oil than the Saudis. That's one of the big secrets.
Oh, we know that. But also southern northern Iraq, there's actually an area of northern Iraq that's been burning for 5,000 years in northern Iraq that they've known about before. So
what did I say? I meant that the Iraqis have more oil than the Saudis. Didn't I say that?
Oh, yeah. In fact, they probably have the same kind of level of oil as, or even more, and it's easier to get at than the more difficult and higher sulfur oil that you find in Venezuela.
Venezuela's got 5 trillion recoverable barrels, they figure, varying degrees of purity.
Yeah, but what happens is a lot of it is not so pure, and it's very high sulfur oil, some of it, so it needs a lot of purification.
Mm-hmm.
The Iraqi oil and the Saudi oil, the Saudi only has 800 million barrels. It's probably thought that but the mother lode of oil is, guess where it is? It's at the southwest end of the Dead Sea. And I told
who owns that?
Southwest end of the Dead Sea, at the bottom of a giant salt dome.
Which country is that in?
Between Jordan and Israel.
Between?
Yeah, it's right at the bottom of the Dead Sea.
Well,
right there
so with slant drilling, it doesn't matter.
No, it's actually an ocean of oil under there.
Uh-huh.
It's actually somewhere around 27 trillion barrels of oil.
27 trillion. Wow.
Trillion.
Right.
Trillion. And
well,
it's
the whole planet's sitting on oil. We know that. But that's
it's
huge.
Ridiculous.
That's
huge.
huge.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what I see happening is right now, these are maneuvers that we talked about today. And I made an interesting observation. I think I call it one of those little moments of inspiration. I know is, not mine, but, from the Most High God. I thought, why is America so powerful with all these fancy space-based weapons and so on, but we're very vulnerable? So these two missile attacks, tests that went on off of Los Angeles. Remember, they shut down the flights out of LAX.
Well, they made the planes reroute, yeah.
Yeah, here's what happened, what's really going on. We talked about it with Tim Alexander, his contacts.
Those are Tridents, and what they were testing, I think, is they've upgraded them all to make them viable till 2043 or something.
Right, but here's what they're really testing. That's the cover story. What they're testing is, we've got a theater air defense, which you've had before the Patriot system in the Gulf One. We have a space-based, what's called plasma interferometry system that'll disrupt the guidance systems of it. No, you can't take that. I'm using it. Can't take it. I'll be ready in a half an hour, Kels, okay?
Here's Mommy.
Okay. That's my daughter. She's coming to say hi to Dad.
I'm set.
Yeah, she's a sweetie. That's my daughter. Kelsey is 22. She has Down syndrome, and she's very intelligent. She knows how to use the iPad. So she actually was coming to get my iPad because that's what I'm on right now.
Very good.
We're on the wireless network as our tech is working on our network here. So anyway, so the test was basically because if you have a high-speed missile that's flying at several hundred yards above the ocean, it's below radar. And they don't have a defense for that. And so what they're testing is newer systems that they're trying to use to identify and detect. Because what's happened is off the Alaska
Are you
coast,
saying that those Tridents swooped down and were tested right above the level of the ocean?
That's why you saw the blue light with them. They're actually testing a system for identifying low flight or non-ballistic activity. In other words, these weren't taking a ballistic trajectory. They were taking a low flight trajectory.
Got it.
Specifically to test the system to detect if they can detect. Because what's happening is the Chinese, from our intelligence, have these low flight missile systems that can come in and hit us on the coast. The other thing is the Russians have got a new sub with a Cobalt 59 shielding on it. And when a missile hits with a nuclear weapon inside, the neutron flux turns the Cobalt 59 into Cobalt 60, which is a dirty bomb. So what you do is you cover your missile with a shield of Cobalt 59, and when it explodes, it turns that into a
very
dirty
interesting.
bomb. So and the Russians just announced this. So what we're saying is, our military is scrambling to say we have big chunks of holes, but we don't have bomb shelters in America like they do in Switzerland or in Russia.
Do you know that the Russians have bomb shelters ringing Moscow that can virtually put the entire population of the city underground?
Oh, I know.
They have that many?
Most other cities do. Vladivostok, everywhere. They have every apartment building in Russia has to have a bomb shelter. They cannot build a building.
Nobody knows this.
Every apartment. That's why it took so long to get an apartment in Russia, because everyone has to go as deep down as a bomb shelter as above.
Well, all right. Hold on a second. Be right back.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah, fascinating. Be right back.